Hello, I'm Tim and I'm your Friday sub on the Pagan Perspective, and this week we're looking at two questions. They're connected questions, they're similar but not quite the same. They offer different perspectives. So the first question is from Freedom Fighter, who asks, which pagan witch druid figure from folklore, mythology, history, what have you, not modern, inspire you and your path, and why? First off, relatively recent, but I want to give a quick shout out in this part to Gerald Gardner. Now, whether you agree with everything he did, like if you're not on a Wicca path or what have you, it's undeniable that the man was open-minded and used what worked. He didn't invent Wicca. He collected bits and pieces from all over the place, stuff that was historically done, and stuff that was currently being used. He joined at least one magical group, what we would call a magical group, before creating Wicca, or before starting to create Wicca, and he'd done a lot of travelling, so he'd seen a lot of things all over the place. I think he grew up in India. If you ever get to a chance to read about his life, absolutely fantastic. There's an interview, or a talk about him on Druidcast. I can't remember when it was, what month, but it's sometime in the last few months. But yeah, Gerald Gardner, amazing. He took what worked, lots of different ideas from all over the place, and I think that's something that anyone can kind of look up to and think, actually, yeah, I don't have to necessarily stick to my way. And that's not me saying that you have to spread far and wide and look at lots of different things, but it certainly, I think, is a good example of where you don't have to feel forced to stick to one very narrow path, because he did pick things from around. He didn't invent Wicca. That's important. Or rather, he may have invented Wicca, but the contents of Wicca wasn't all originally. It's not all copyright Gerald Gardner, and obviously can't forget Doreen Valiente, who took all of his stuff, because apparently he wasn't a very good writer, and she actually organised it and made it make more sense and made it more coherent. So without her, we wouldn't have the Wicca that we currently have, and without him, we wouldn't have had anything for her to work upon. Although obviously we don't know what she would have done had he not existed. But that's relatively recent. That's in the last 60 years, 50 years, maybe even. I don't know, but relatively recent. So, a figure from folklore, mythology, or historical record. Well, there was a figure who desired knowledge, and he wanted to know. He had this thing, he needed to have knowledge. And this figure is someone who I look to quite a lot. He wanted knowledge, and so he went on a journey to gain knowledge. He'd heard about a place where he could drink from a well, and drinking from the well, he would gain complete wisdom, as it were, complete knowledge of everything. And so he went on this long journey, and it was hard, and he went through the land of giants and up mountains and down mountains, and a really long way. And eventually he got there, and it had been a really tough journey, and he got to the other end, and he said to the guardian of the well, I would like to drink from the well and gain knowledge. And the guardian said to him, pull out your eye, or stab yourself in the eye, words to that effect. So he did, without question, because he sought knowledge. He blinded himself. Of course, who's the one-eyed god? Odin. Odin had previously sacrificed himself to the tree Yggdrasil. He hung himself from Yggdrasil upside down for something like 9 days, I think. Might have the number wrong. Stabbed in the side with a spear. for knowledge. He got the knowledge of runes through doing this. The idea that to gain you have to sacrifice is a very simple idea, but it's one that he reinforces. One where he leads by example. He didn't try to plead with Mimir at the well. He didn't try to bargain with him. He didn't try to negotiate some other... No, if that's what it takes to get knowledge, right, I'll rip my eye out. He drank from Mimir as well, and he gained the knowledge. As someone who grew up atheist, that wasn't pushed on me. That was something I went to myself. Largely when people have a very good understanding of the world around them, how the natural world works. I do have a good understanding of how the natural world works. I've got a terrible head for equations and formulas and names of processes and things like that. But any time I see a discussion about a science-y type natural world topic, I can follow along relatively easily. I've got a good fundamental understanding of how that works. I look at rainbow, I look at clouds, I look at chemical reactions, I look at just everyday things. I'm seeing the science. And I think that stood in the way of me developing spirituality earlier, because I was looking at the world with those eyes. I was very focused on those things. If I don't know, if I picked something up that was made of metal, I would think, what kind of metal is this? That's not normal. I've got a very big focus on the world around me and how things work. And looking at the world with those science eyes was getting in the way, I think, of me being able to look deeper. Now, of course, I could... Where is it? Okay, hopefully you didn't hear that. I could look at, say, a rainbow and think, oh, that's beautiful. I could look at a mountain and think that's beautiful. I'd feel things, but I wouldn't see things much differently. That's always been a part of me, that I've seen beauty in things. But seeing things and feeling more than just that's beautiful didn't come until my pagan eyes were opened, as it were. And in opening my pagan eyes and seeing more for this extra level of wisdom, to draw parallels to the Odin story, I had to make a sacrifice. I had to drop sight, as it were, the way I saw the world. I had to cut that in half proportionately. I've still got the science view, as it were. I can still look at clouds and think, oh, there's hot air rising and cold air and all these kind of things. But there's now this whole extra half of the world that I'm seeing, and I don't necessarily understand all of it. The spiritual side of me, I'm still relatively new to it all. But I am looking at the world through pagan eyes. But I'm lacking knowledge. Proportionately, my view of the world has been halved as far as understanding. There's a lot I don't understand with regards to spirituality and closest to nature and all these kind of things. So again, Odin acts as an example that sometimes in order to gain we have to lose. I'm now coming to a large part of life from a point of ignorance, where before I was completely confident, and now I'm coming at it from a place of ignorance. I'm not quite sure what's the right thing to do, what's the right thing to say. Why do I feel this way about certain things? What does this particular thing mean? And I know there's no particular one way of doing any particular type of magic necessarily, but I've created a whole part of my life now where there's ignorance where there wasn't before. And that's exciting. There's more for me to learn. Like, often people think, oh, I wish I could look at a rainbow with the enthusiasm of a 5-year-old. I saw there was some TV program. Someone said him and his friends were hypnotised themselves so that they didn't think they'd ever seen the Harry Potter movies before, so they could watch them all again for the first time. That's almost the way I'm looking at the world now. There's so much I'm looking at for the first time. So yeah, there's that. This is getting quite long. So Odin. Aim high, Tim. So, the second question from Yucca. Pagan role models, do you have any? Who are they? And what about them do you admire? I'm fortunate enough to be part of a local pagan community. We meet once or twice a month. We have a monthly moot, 2 of them, I suppose, where kind of we will have guest speakers on pagan topics, and we'll have a go at things and discussion and hang out and kind of discuss things relating to our paganism and what's been going on in our lives and whatnot. And it's a really good thing to be able to meet with these people and be honest and listen and be open, and it's completely no judgments, because I know for a fact that there are people there who don't believe in some of the things that other people believe, and that's completely fine, because everyone's there and not believing something that is the norm, and everyone there is living life the way they want to live it, and that's a massive inspiration. Even forgetting the pagan side, I mean, it's a symptom of what makes them inspirational. But they've chosen to live lives the way they want to live their lives, and that's what the words. The non-conformity, not for non-conformity's sake, but because of being true to oneself, not caring about whether you conform. I mean, this, clearly, I'm not attempting to conform. This gets stares, it gets looks. I'm a substitute teacher. Every new school I'm at, I get kids shouting Dumbledore down the corridors. Dumbledore's awesome. I either get Dumbledore or Jack Black. He shaved his beard off, so it's mostly now getting Dumbledore. And of course I shout back Hagrid, because, let's face it, Hagrid's cooler. But the idea of being able to live your life the way you want to live your life, putting your own happiness before caring about what other people think. Now, admittedly, it makes it very easy for me to do this publicly when I'm in those groups. I mean, we go to Avebury regularly. I was just last weekend at the spring solstice Gorseth, druid gathering, and I was out to. It was a really big deal. I was so nervous. Biggest stone circle in Europe. Relatively big gathering because obviously good weather. So I was getting more and more nervous, and then the archdruid turned up. For goodness sake, all these monitors are turned off and they've reduced the light. Come on, back on. There we go. So yeah, so there's a lot of people very, very nervous. I was calling a quarter at the in the circle, and I even got nervous then. But if that had been a proper public place, I mean, it was public. But if it had been in the middle of a high street in a town, I don't know if I might have even completely bottled it. I don't know. But the people around me, they inspire me. The pagan community around me, just being themselves, they inspire me to be true to myself and let me be on my path. Ask lots and lots of questions. and I'm sure I can be annoying sometimes, but they're certainly inspirational in the way that you invite someone into a group. I mean, when I was first invited along on the first kind of trip, I was, as far as I was concerned, I was pagan, who just loved, not pagan, atheist, but just loved nature. It's been a big year. So yeah, Gerald Gardner took ideas from wherever he felt that those ideas were best. He used what worked, and even though it was a bit messy, he did that. Doreen Valiente was able to recognise something that worked but wasn't quite coherent, so she fixed it. So again, both recognising good ideas that weren't necessarily originally together, and they brought them together. So being open-minded. Odin sacrificed himself for knowledge twice, and he was able to give up half of his sight for wisdom. And that's something anyone can strive towards. I think everyone should be willing to sacrifice to gain. And then the people around me. Inspire me to be the person who I feel I am. Not necessarily even the person I want to be. Just letting me be who I am. Me letting myself be who I am. Because too often people are worried about what other people think. So yeah, there's my answer. 17 minutes. It's the weekend soon. Have a good one. Blessed be.